Ball returned from a 2-year absence in the 2024-25 season, appearing in 35 games. Cavs will be reportedly sending Isaac Okoro back to Chicago. The Cleveland Cavaliers are acquiring Lonzo Ball in a trade with the Chicago Bulls.
The Chicago Bulls just made another head-scratching move that has everyone asking the same thing. What the hell is this franchise doing? They just traded Lonzo Ball to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Isaac Okoro, and when you see the full picture of what Chicago has been up to over the past year, you're gonna be absolutely mind-blown by how badly they mismanaged this rebuild. But here's the thing, and stick around because I'm gonna break down this entire trade completely because it's fairly complicated. The Cavaliers may have just pulled off the steal of the year, or they may have just traded for a player whose career could be over at any moment. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why both teams made this move and whether it's actually genius or completely insane, because Lonzo Ball's injury history is absolutely terrifying. But the Chicago Bulls' recent trade history is so bad that it won't really make you feel so confident in Chicago's latest trade. We're talking about a franchise that traded away Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso in the past year, and somehow didn't get a single first-round pick back. Not a single one. And wait until you hear what the Cleveland Cavaliers are truly planning with this trade. So before we get to the content, we've been on an absolute tear on this channel, uploading 2 to 3 times a day to make sure you are up to date with the latest NBA news and analysis. We already uploaded a video earlier today on the latest in the Ace Bailey situation, and that situation's absolutely wild. So if you want to make sure you're up to date with the latest NBA news, make sure you're subscribed, have your notifications on, follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok to make sure you are always up to date. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. PrizePicks is back and they're giving us another free square, and we almost always hit on these. It's practically free money. Ila Topuria just needs one significant strike in tonight's fight in order for his square to hit. So I paired him with these picks to easily 3.25x my money. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a free $50 when you make a play of $5 or more. And if you happen to be too late on any of these other plays, then make sure you check out the WAP link in the description down below, because I am part of a Discord server that gives 10 picks each and every day, and we have been profiting like crazy over this past month. And thank you, PrizePicks, for today's sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So for those of you guys that missed it, Shams dropped a bomb earlier today that the Chicago Bulls traded Lonzo Ball straight up for Isaac Okoro from the Cleveland Cavaliers. No picks, no additional players, just a 1-for-1 swap. Now, before you start thinking this is just some random offseason trade, you need to understand the context. The Cavaliers just came off of a 64-18 season, their best record in franchise history. They earned the #1 seed in the East, but they got bounced in the second round by Indiana in just 5 games, and their lack of backcourt depth was exposed badly. For the Chicago Bulls, this is just the latest move in what can only be described as one of the most confusing rebuilds in recent NBA history. But we'll get to that disaster in just a minute. Here's what the Chicago Bulls have done in the past 12 months. They traded 3 of their biggest stars and somehow got a worse return than I would have if I was building this team in NBA 2K My League. Let's start with Zach LaVine. In February of 2025, they sent him to Sacramento in a 3-team trade. Zach LaVine would then go on to put up his best career shooting numbers, 51.1% from the field and 44.6% from 3. But that massive $215 million contract originally made him nearly impossible to move. But what does Chicago get back? Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and their own first-round pick. Then there's DeMar DeRozan, and this one hurts even more. DeMar DeRozan left in a sign-and trade to Sacramento in July of 2024. And remember, this is a guy who finished second in NBA Clutch Player of the Year voting. And what did the Bulls get for an elite clutch performer? Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, and cash considerations. That's it. They basically sold low on one of the most clutch players in the league. And then there was the Alex Caruso trade. They swapped the 2-time all-defensive team members straight up for Josh Giddey last summer. Now, don't get me wrong, Josh Giddey proved to us this past last year that he has a tremendous amount of potential. But you're trading elite defense and veteran leadership for a young player who had question marks on defense and on shooting. And here's the kicker, in all three of these trades, the Bulls didn't get a single legitimate first-round pick back. They only got their own first-round pick back, and that's just poor asset management. So what exactly is Chicago's plan here? Well, their general manager has refused to call this a rebuild. Instead, he's calling it a youth movement, where he's focused on experienced young guys. But let's be real, when you trade away Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and now Lonzo Ball, and you finish 39-43, missing the playoffs for the third straight year, that's a rebuild whether you want to admit it or not. And that's the thing, you don't need to be a genius to know that the Chicago Bulls are in a rebuild. The thing is, they're doing it all wrong. Most rebuilding teams stockpile draft picks and young assets. The Bulls are trading established players for other established players and somehow getting worse in the process. It's like they're trying to rebuild without actually rebuilding. Now, let's talk about Lonzo Ball, because this story is honestly one of the most heartbreaking stories in recent NBA history. Remember the hype surrounding Lonzo Ball when he got drafted? Magic Johnson literally came out and said,
"Just leave me 1 or 2 records, okay? That's it. You know, all right, don't break all my records. Just I want your grandfather, just let him leave me 1, okay?"
They traded their existing point guard just so they could build around him, for crying out loud. This dude had his dad claiming that he was better than Steph Curry. The media circus was insane. Big baller brand was everywhere, and everyone thought this kid was going to be the next Magic Johnson or Steph Curry with the 50-inch vertical. Miss you, Mike. He even won Summer League MVP in 2017 and became the youngest player ever to record a triple-double. The potential was clearly there. Great size at 6'6", elite court vision, and solid defensive instincts. But here's where the story takes a dark turn, and this is honestly heartbreaking when you really think about it. Lonzo has played just 252 games across 8 seasons. For context, a healthy player should play around 600 to 652 games in that span. That's less than half the games he should have played. The injury saga with Chicago is where things get really scary. On January 14th, 2022, Ball suffered what initially was called a small meniscus tear, with a 4 to 6 week recovery timeline, and that turned into missing 1,013 days, over 2.5 years for what was supposed to be a minor injury. What happened next is honestly unprecedented in NBA history. Ball underwent 3 different surgeries. In March 2023, he had a meniscus and cartilage transplant, a procedure that no NBA player had ever attempted before. Ball himself would say that there was no more meniscus left and it was bone on bone rubbing together. Just imagine the pain this guy was dealing with. The injury was so serious that the Ball family even met the family of the man who donated the knee cartilage that he received in the transplant. He literally needed someone else's body parts to keep playing basketball. And the comeback story seemed promising when Ball returned last October after missing over 1,000 days. Bulls fans gave him a standing ovation, and for a moment it felt like a fairy tale comeback. But reality hit hard. He only played in 35 games before a wrist injury ended his season early. In those limited appearances, Ball averaged 7.6 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 3.3 assists per game on 36.6% shooting from 3. Those are solid numbers, but they were a far cry from the franchise cornerstone expectations that came with being the number 2 overall pick. So you might be wondering, why would the Cavaliers trade for a guy with such a scary injury history? Well, their reasoning makes a lot of sense when you take a look at their current situation. First, Cleveland just had their best regular season ever with a 64-18 record, but they got exposed in the playoffs. Their lack of backcourt depth and playmaking under pressure proved fatal in that second round loss to Indiana. But here's the key detail that makes this trade make sense. Darius Garland just had toe surgery and will be out for 4 to 5 months. That's their all-star point guard, and now they need someone who can handle playmaking duties while he recovers. Their backup guard Ty Jerome is headed for unrestricted free agency, and here's the problem. The Cavaliers are $12 million over the second luxury tax apron. Retaining Jerome at his expected $14 million price tag was financially impossible. So what does Lonzo Ball bring to Cleveland? Well, Ball provides exactly what their general manager identified as needs: size in the backcourt at 6'6", defensive versatility, and the playmaking ability to reduce pressure on Donovan Mitchell. Plus, Ball's contract is team-friendly at just $10 million, with a team option for the 2026-27 season. That gives Cleveland flexibility while addressing an immediate need. For Isaac Okoro, his time in Cleveland had reached a natural endpoint. After being selected 5th overall in 2020, he saw his role diminish under their brand new head coach Kenny Atkinson, averaging career lows in minutes at just 19.7 per game, despite improving his three-point shooting to 37%. Despite these improvements, Okoro was still a very limited offensive player and played exclusively off the bench in the playoffs. Cleveland.com reported that the Cavaliers had a hard time finding anybody that has legitimate interest in Okoro, with teams wanting additional assets to take on his $11 million annual salary. Analysts say that if Ball can stay healthy, then this is a win and an upgrade for Cleveland on the court. But there's an obvious elephant in the room. The only reason you can't give the Cavaliers an A for this trade is because of Ball's medical history. He just missed 2 full seasons due to knee injuries. From Chicago's perspective, acquiring a 24-year-old Okoro fits their stated philosophy of adding experienced young players to their developing core. With increased opportunity alongside Josh Giddey and Kobe White, the Bulls are betting that they can unlock the potential that made Isaac Okoro a top 5 pick. So Lonzo's role is definitely not what we expected it to be 8 years ago. This trade likely cements his transition from potential franchise player to a valuable role player. At 27 years old, with a surgically reconstructed knee that he admits will never restore his original athleticism, Ball's ceiling appears to be as a smart, defensive-minded backup point guard who can provide 20 to 25 quality minutes per game when healthy. Honestly, that's exactly what Cleveland needs. They're not looking for a star. They've got Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley for that. They need a stabilizing veteran presence who can guide their second unit and fill in for Garland during his recovery. For the Cavaliers, this is a calculated gamble that makes sense for their championship window. They just won 64 games and have one of the best young cores in the league with Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. Adding a veteran playmaker with playoff experience, even one with injury concerns, addresses their biggest weakness. But the risk is obvious. If Ball gets hurt again, they basically traded away a young, healthy player for nothing. But if he stays healthy and can contribute 20 solid minutes per game in the playoffs, this could be a nice depth piece that puts them over the top in the East. For the Bulls, Okoro just represents another reclamation project in their youth movement. Coming off of his worst statistical season, the pressure will be on Okoro to prove that he can contribute offensively beyond corner three-pointers. It's pretty much the same exact thing that they did with the Josh Giddey trade. Trade for a player that was once a very high draft pick that was being underutilized and didn't fit with his existing team, and try to double down on his development. And at the end of the day, I don't think one team got the edge over the other in this trade. It makes sense why both of these teams made this trade. But let me know in the comment section down below, if you're a Bulls fan and a Cavs fan, how do you feel about this trade? Do you think the Chicago Bulls should have gotten a little bit more for Lonzo? Do you think the Cleveland Cavaliers are silly for taking a risk on Lonzo Ball? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.